I will just cross check if we are good to go on the YouTube channel.
Mm.
Okay, so we are live. Awesome. So, welcome to Fridays for Future special series Environment and You. It's been a pleasure to bring you speakers from all walks of life. Thank you for joining our fireside chat with one more such special guest. She's not only a social entrepreneur, but a great women leader. And that's why we are going to talk to her about women and women leadership in an environment. And I'm sure she has inspired you in many ways already. But today, through our fireside chat, we wish to reflect with her on a couple of topics. But first, let me introduce you to our guest, Kathy Walkling. Welcome, Kathy.
Thank you, Jessie.
And so a little bit about her from my side, and I would pass it on to her to add if I miss anything. So Kathy is originally from Australia and has lived in the international township of Oroville since 1997, and she has co-founded EcoFem, a project that has made cloth menstrual pads cool in India. 10 years ago, this was she did this 10 years ago as a way of bringing her passion for supporting the feminine and her love for the earth into her life work. And when she's not busy with EcoFam, she loves to spend time in the wilderness. So over to you, Kathy. Will you tell us more about yourself?
Sure, yeah, thank you. So I think in a way I've really lived two lives. The first half of my life was lived in Australia, and the second half here in India. Two completely different places, environments, cultural contexts. I suppose maybe I could start by just sharing a little bit about, because for me, they actually feel like they have been two really different life trajectories. And I think one of the things in growing up in Australia, obviously, it's a very beautiful country, very privileged country. And, um, I remember sort of my earliest memory around environment was actually sort of that nature was kind of the enemy to be kept out of our kind of comfortable homes. And I actually did not grow up with very much, I'd say, kind of consciousness around environment um, or the earth until really I think I came to India and was confronted with such a different reality here. And so, yeah, I think one of the things that really first landed very hard for me coming from a country like Australia to live in India was the amount of garbage and pollution that was literally everywhere. It was so visible and it really disturbed me a lot. So I think that's sort of one of the earliest seeds of inspiration also for the project of EcoFem as well. Um, yeah.
Thank you for sharing your earliest memory. And do you have any other memories of of the environment which get got you started with
Yeah, well, I think especially regarding EcoFem, I think just to maybe tell you a little bit my story around that, when I kind of first came to India and I was kind of, had to deal with my own sanitary waste. And I was expecting that, I asked somebody, said, so where do I put it? And I was expecting that, someone would point me to a bin, which we always had easy access to wherever I was in Australia, whether it was in a private home or in a public place. And, the product would be gone. And in this particular case, I was given a mumpty, which is like a little short-handled digging tool, and told that I could go and dig a hole over there to bury my sanitary waste. And that was one of those real aha moments for me where I was like, oh, it was, I think, that first realization that there was no a way. And that landed hard. And I dug that hole and I experienced how difficult that actually was because the earth is really like baked, like it's very hard to actually dig anything here at all. So, that really motivated me to sort of look for alternatives to disposable menstrual products. And actually, when I was visiting my brother a year or so later in New Zealand, I stumbled literally quite accidentally across a cloth pad. It was an unbranded, a homemade thing that was just sitting in a very small village shop shelf in a kind of remote corner. But I instinctively gravitated towards that product, and it was like, this is what I'm looking for, without even knowing it had a name. It was just, I could see what it was and how it would function. And that experience of using that cloth pad quite literally changed my life. It changed my life because I think, first of all, it was the obvious thing of that I'm not going to have to dig that hole every month now was already, a big plus. But I started to realize all kinds of things about how, I'd also been culturally conditioned to be very disassociated from menstruation, and the whole thing around the products that I had been using, which were disposable, were all really designed to, you know, conceal the experience and, to be used and thrown and gotten rid of as quickly as possible. So I suppose it was also a doorway to study to contemplate my own consumption behaviors. And I think then, I also, it was obviously the environmental, and I actually just really liked how the cloth pad felt as an experience. It was actually not as disgusting as I was thinking it was going to be. So in a way, you could say that was the birth of first of all, my love affair with cloth pads, which later morphed into the creation of EcoFem as a social enterprise. But there was a 10-year time gap between my own conversion and actually starting EcoFem.
Yes, and thank you for doing that. So, so is that when you first realized climate change is a problem? Is that when you first realized? Could you like tell us?
No, I think, it was a slowly evolving insight. I think the first time I became a little bit aware about climate change was when we were still calling it global warming. And that was already when I was still back in Australia. And I think what was really kind of getting a lot of attention in media was, for example, the bleaching of the coral reefs. And, we grow up with this sort of national pride about this, world wonder, really, which unfortunately I've never had the chance to actually physically go and see. But, the images of it just touched me so much. So to start to see images of bleached out coral was like, gosh, it really landed. And even I think, at the time, as I said, we were calling it sort of global warming. And, even the thought of getting, hotter summers was something that was quite terrifying in Australia. So I think there were many sort of little milestones in my awakening, but I think it really kicked in when I moved to Oroville, because Oroville is a very special place. It's an intentional community that's really, it's rooted on all kinds of, really spiritual values, but ecology is also part of its sort of DNA, I would say, realizing that everything is connected. And if we are to create a future, a healthy, thriving future, then we have to understand what those linkages are. And I actually got involved in tree planting as one of my first activities in Oroville. And and as I not just got my hands in the soil, but really started to understand why tree planting was so important, I think, it was just a gradual evolution. Probably the most important thing that we are facing as a community, a human community. And yeah, I think the other big milestone for me, in a sense, was, I was obviously started to get more and more aware and more educated about different aspects and what was kind of getting us into this predicament. But I think the other big, powerful opportunity that I had in my life was to start to spend time in wilderness. And this was a great gift. And I'd say really it came out of, oops, I'm just trying to get the camera back here. Are we still
I can
connected?
hear you. I can hear
Okay,
you.
great. Can you see me actually? Because I've lost the visual for a moment, but it's coming, I think. Yep.
Yes,
Sorry, it's a little bit.
no problem.
Okay.
I it got stuck with a smile on your face, so I was okay.
Okay, so here's another smile. So yeah, wilderness. And I think what was really powerful for me about that, I had the opportunity to spend significant time immersed in an incredibly beautiful part of a place in India called Hampi, which is a very ancient landscape and has very strong elemental presence. And that I think really ignited my love for earth and nature in a way that was till then somewhat abstract and somewhat in my mind. And this really kind of became embodied and intimate. I started, to really experience nature as myself in a completely profoundly impacting in terms of awakening that love of earth. And from there, I think, is born our care to want to do whatever we can to not cause harm and to nurture the environment. So these are some of the important elements. I think, yeah, Oroville, the whole kind of context of Oroville, and being in a community of people aspiring to a different relationship with nature, and especially my own personal immersion in wilderness was hugely impactful.
Yeah, yeah. I can feel the impact. I'm sure it was more impactful when you were going through it, and I'm so happy to hear that Oroville was the place, and you could find your community there. And I guess that's how your career in sustainability came to life. So, how did you integrate sustainability into your career? Like, how did you bring everything together?
Well, I suppose firstly, I don't even think about it as a career. I think it was so organic. It was, first of all, there was this, experience of my own sort of love affair with cloth pads. I never dreamt of making a kind of career out of it. But I think that this is something that sometimes ideas grab you and they don't leave you alone. And this particular one kind of came into focus as I was working with a nonprofit that was working with women from low income backgrounds in the rural villages surrounding Oroville. And we were working on jobs for them and livelihood opportunities. And it was really then that the sort of dots started to join in my mind. I kept looking at my cloth pad and thinking, this is not rocket science. All you need is a sewing machine and, a bit of design. And anyway, I feel this is sort of something that was actually more or less, it had a force and it kind of came through me in a power of manifestation. It was like, this wants to happen. And everything just kind of came into alignment. I met my co-founder Yesaman, who really shared a kind of similar love for cloth pads. So we found ourselves in a strong resonance with this idea. We saw the capacity of the women that we were working with to actually, who were learning stitching, that they could actually, manage to manufacture and stitch cloth pads. And we also realized, I think in a way that wasn't so visible at the time to perhaps native Indians, that I knew that cloth pads were already out there in the world. So it was sort of like, I had the feeling, well, if we just tried to sort of, create a good model for the product and market it, at least in the West, I just somewhat naively assumed that shouldn't be so difficult. So I'm telling you this story because it's really, first of all, it was not a kind of career choice to enter the world of sustainability. It just emerged entirely organically out of my love and my life, of what I was already doing. It was just like the next step. But I think what was potent about it for me was that it had a kind of inner demand to be given attention. And I think sometimes ideas are really like that, like they choose us rather than we sort of set out to kind of make something happen. And I really had not much idea. I'd had no background in business or, creating an enterprise or anything like that. Sorry, I'm checking on having to reset the visuals here because my camera keeps
Uh,
going off.
but
But you can still hear me, right?
I'm
Any
glad that the audio is
disturbances?
clear. So
Okay, I just keep
please keep
talking while
typing.
I'm fuddling
So
around here. I'm sorry, it's a bit
I can
frustrating.
just keep listening. You can just keep listening. Please go.
Okay, great. It will come slowly. Um, yeah, so I just sort of followed the thread, and it kind of revealed itself step by step what was needed. Yeah, I hope there I sort of somehow answered your question. It wasn't a grand plan to create a career in sustainability. It was just like I love Earth. I think the other thing about cloth pads that really motivated myself and Yeseman very much was that we sort of spent time to learn about disposable pads, and we could see that these were gaining in popularity in India. Like the women were being bombarded with messages about, converting to disposable pads from old unhygienic cloth, and that this was the modern hygienic practice. So, we just kind of started this at the right moment as well, I would say, where we were seeing this incredible momentum to sort of convince every woman in India that, if you're a modern and hygienic woman, of course you're going to use a disposable pad. So we started to figure out, and try to understand, well, what is in these disposable pads? I knew there was sort of at least a plastic leak-proof layer, but what I had no idea about until we started doing research was just how much plastic, and that literally a single sanitary napkin is about 90% plastic. It's a complex product. It's high tech. It presents a massive challenge as a waste stream to manage, because it's mixed with menstrual blood. Nobody wants to handle it. And in India, you also have the issue of, actually human beings, for example, unclogging blocked drains, which are blocked because someone's flushed a sanitary napkin. So I suppose, our initial naive idea of we'll just create a local livelihood and try to manufacture cloth pads and encourage women to think about making the switch was soon superseded by a much richer and deeper understanding of what is the issue here, what are the problems with disposable pads. And I think the tipping point was realizing that a single sanitary napkin takes somewhere between 500 to 800 years to break down because of all that plastic and chemicals. And that was the thing that just lit a fire under us. It's like, we've just got to try. And we had no idea if we would be successful. And, we had a lot of pushback in the beginning, and people thought we were mad and we were these kind of, sort of hippie foreigners that wanted to import these exotic ideas about making women go back to the drudgery of washing cloth. I mean, this was the mindset that we encountered, and we had so much sort of continued to build our knowledge and our understanding and quietly keep persisting in sharing the information and encouraging people simply to make informed choices, not to shame them out of using disposables, not to tell them, this is terrible and you should use a cloth pad. We realize it's a big behavior change for a lot of women to make that switch. But at the same time, no matter how we looked at it, we couldn't see a better alternative other than, say, a menstrual cup, which is also reusable, but culturally not a very acceptable product, for Indian women. So, we just knew we had to keep going, and that's what we did. So it wasn't a designed trajectory. It was absolutely organic.
It's totally visible. To be honest, it's the organic growth is totally visible because we can see the passion with which you're driving the whole project, and the whole team, the how passionate they are. So
Mm,
we're happy that we are so excited to know that there are a group of women, and their leadership is contributing to the environment, and we can bring revolution in our own ways. So
yeah.
going back to the one of the priorities that I think ecofem has, and I have read it, that you have this hashtag cloth pad revolution, right?
Uh-huh.
So you how did you think of bringing in this aspect revelation, like into the priorities of ecofem? Was it
Yeah.
was it organic too, or did you follow as your growth came?
It, it dropped in one day. This sort of idea of a revolution just kind of landed. And, in a way, we were playing with this the whole time. Like, we're all women. We're 20 women today on the team, but of course, it's grown slowly over time. But we were just having fun doing what we were doing and doing it because we believed in it. And, and it was our own lived experience too. Like we were using these products, we were doing it for us, but we were also doing it for the earth and for other women. It was sort of like, let's just see how far we can go with this. So we actually, I think, felt free to play and to create and to try ideas out because it was an uncharted territory. Nobody had done this before in India, and we didn't know what we couldn't do. So we just tried it out, and it was amazing. The idea just kind of actually ignited, I would say. And I think what was another really beautiful organic development was our what I'm calling our ambassador work network. And this was, again, we started to find, people would buy the cloth pads and then they would contact us and say, we love what you're doing. We really believe in the product. And we would like to support. How can we help? So we started to kind of think about, well, how can they help? And we realized that there were all kinds of ways that people could get engaged. And we just said, look, what would you like to do? We just left them free to say, where are you connected? Who's your community? Do you want to do events? Do you want to do fairs? Do you want to sort of speak in schools, colleges? Do you want to do markets? So we didn't prescribe how people did it, but what we understood were the key and core values were authenticity, engaging informed choice, and speaking on behalf of your own love and passion, like really having that be the core of how one takes this work forward. So we just tried to encourage women to do that and provided them with resources. So, knowledge kits that they would be armed with a few kind of facts and figures that would help them feel confident to stand in front of others. But it was all about self-empowerment. I mean, for us, it was self-empowerment. And for each of the ambassadors, it's like, how do you want to engage? You're free. We're not, you're volunteering. What would you like to do? How would you like to speak about this? And we're just here as your allies. And now that network has well over 100 ambassadors, I think, both in India and around the world. And again, like I say, it's a little army of self-motivated, self-empowered, incredibly passionate women and men, in fact, who are just speaking on behalf of this cause. And I think the other thing I really learned is that the mission is bigger than the brand. So vision's gone again. So, we realize that the EcoFem is, it's not just our work to do this work around menstrual hygiene awareness and cloth pad revolution. This is something that is, can you still hear me?
I can hear you well.
Okay,
Yes.
great. Sorry, I'm just trying to get the camera back at you. It's really fussy.
No worries.
I'll just keep talking as if I'm looking
Yes.
at you. um, Here we come. So, yeah. Uh, so, yeah, we just realized that it's bigger than us. And people sort of started to replicate what we were doing and say, we also want to make cloth pads. And we just said, fantastic, how can we help you? Because we realized that the mission, like there's 1.3 billion people in India, let's say 500 million women in India alone. It's like there's no way a little organization like EcoFem is going to be able to serve that kind of population. And if we really want a revolution, which is also a decision that we consciously made early on, is that, for us, we did not perceive other people who wanted to make cloth pads as competitors, but we saw them as allies, and that we were all part of a bigger mission. And the more we can work together, the bigger will be our collective impact. Yeah.
Yeah, that totally makes sense, and I think that is one of our secret sauce also at Fridays for Future, because
Yes.
we look at a movement, when we look at a revolution, we all have to work as an ally. So
Yes.
thank you for touch basing on that aspect, and I can totally understand that why do this revolution is where it is now, and it's totally understandable to me. So okay, moving on. We wanted to know what have been three positive learnings and one shortfall through
Mm,
your organic activism that
mm,
we in the environmental justice movement can learn from.
yeah. I think, first of all, I think that there are so many people that are ready and primed and want to help and support. And in a way, I describe the ambassador network. But I think that one of the key learnings was how to harness the interest and engagement of volunteers. And I think that what we've really been learning and experimenting with is giving people the freedom to engage in the way that they want. And where is the sort of space for free play, and what are the kind of is the kind of clarity around a common mission necessary? Um, I think that's probably different depending on each sort of project and mission, depending on what it is. But I think what really was a great discovery for us is there's so much support and help available, and all we really needed to do was ask and create space for people to engage. And that was an unexpected but a key part of what our work is being, is how do we harness this incredible energy of volunteers and passionate, committed people who want to align with this mission. Let me see, I think, yeah, I think that, and again, I think I've spoken a lot about this, but this idea that I think we've got to get out of our own way a little bit as well, and not try to construct with our minds too much where things want to go. We're living in incredibly chaotic and accelerated times where things are just moving so quickly and changing so fast. So I think there's a
Speaking
certain,
about it. Speaking
yeah,
about
yeah, I think there's something in the agility to be able to be responsive to emergence, and yeah, not to sort of like to, I think there's this sort of strange dynamic between having your goals and having your clarity of where you want to go. And for us, it was real. I think a big piece was recognizing that actually we're about a movement. It's bigger than us. So to really not try to pin it down too much, but to really watch and listen and learn to listen and try to get out of the way and not control things too much. That's a whole other thing that could be unpacked further. But yeah, I think that's one kind of key insight. Uh, and I think, yeah, this thing of that the mission is bigger than the brand. I think just to really sort of stay connected and just keep us, like stepping aside from the ego that wants to shine, and realizing that the more that we, um, you know, connect with that it is bigger than us. This wants to happen. We are servants of this process of transformation on behalf of Earth. That I think this inner orientation provides the conditions under which we are given increasing opportunities through which to serve and participate. So I think these would be three discoveries, learnings, insights that I had that I think have really informed our work. I think the challenge, oh, you know, I think there's such a momentum about how we do business in the world. And it's so difficult to, not just submit to this linear growth model, even though we know it's killing us. But I see that, the navigating the dynamic between running an organization that's got, deliverables, and we're trying to meet targets, and we all feel the sense of urgency and time running out and all of this. And at the same time, not to get hijacked by that sort of fear and panic and pressure to keep running after deadlines, but to listen within and to take time, like nature has these cycles of listening, regeneration, dormant seasons. I think we have to figure out how to allow ourselves to have certain time and space, especially when we're leading organizations. But I think this is true for all of us, we have to start sourcing our action in the world from within. I firmly believe this. And that means as prioritizing and sometimes really going against the time to listen to the rivers that are running underground, and not just sort of being propelled along by the external demands. This is hard, and I personally struggle with this every single day. I feel I'm constantly in a tension with that, and I don't think I'm very good at it yet. But I do think this is one of the major challenges, is how do we transition out of this way of being in life, which is so driven to produce results and do it quickly, and at the same time listen to and be sensitive instruments of nature, which is what we are.
Yeah, I guess all of us go through that. It's not just you, because at the end of the day, we are humans, so we need to take a break and like you said, align with nature and take our time off. So I guess that's why taking time off and being in the wilderness, connecting with nature makes sense, right?
Yeah.
Uh, Thank you for sharing these insights and these shortcomings, because it really helps the youth to learn from you and people who are actually going through, and how they are trying to navigate, and being humble about the fact that yes, it's something that we are still working on, and it's a work in progress, because obviously the idea of perfect is quite a popular idea. So we really need to step down from that. Yes. So moving on to another question, which is kind of linked to what you said. So with respect to like the challenges that you face, the insights that you had, what is your advice to young people who want to create sustainable social impact while being able to sustain themselves financially?
Yeah, I think that first of all, I really recognize, I mean, most of our team is a lot younger than me. So I see the energy, the incredible energy of young people, and the passion and the urgency to get out there and make a difference. And that is fabulous. And it's the need of the hour in a way. But I suppose, I'm speaking as somebody who's now in my early 50s. So I've realized that actually to learn the dance steps of how to not just create something but to sustain something for the long haul requires something. And I think that one thing I would really suggest to young people is if you can possibly find some good mentors, and if there's a particular, like, first of all, listen in to what is your passion. I think there's so many fires that are asking for attention right now on the earth. So I think the first thing is to really get in touch with what makes your heart beat fastest. Where does your own passion lie? Because that, I think, is the key to really sustaining something for the long run, and not being sort of like, oh, I'm bored with that and now I want to go on to do this, and getting restless. I think we need to figure out how to access energy for sustaining ourselves, and not just, the movements, and not burning out. So I think one thing would be, find your passion, find the issue that most brings you alive, and that kind of keeps you awake at night, and that touches your heart most deeply. Then I would say find collaborators, and find if possible mentors that you can learn from, and learn from their journey. And I don't just mean, like, conversations like this are great, you can pick up all kinds of sort of maybe insights, but I think there's no substitute for also really working in an organization and really understanding the nitty gritty of what it's going to take to keep it up and running through the long haul. Because I think what would is really a pity is that we've got, we are in a way under time pressure. And I think we all want to use our time as efficiently and as effectively as possible, and not burn ourselves out. So I think take that time to learn, really hone your gifts, and put yourself in a situation of being mentored by good elders for some time, to really learn what it's going to take to not just initiate an idea, but to, hold a group together, hold a team together, and sustain a long-term vision. I think, yeah, strategy and structure and grounding vision is a really important piece that I think is often missing sometimes in young people. It takes time. I mean, I didn't start even ecofem myself until I was, in my early 40s. And that was after also starting another project and staying with it for quite a few years. And prior to that, just working under other good leaders that helped me learn all the infrastructure internally of what is it going to take to not just birth a good idea. I think we can birth good ideas like that, but can we sustain them? Can we actually, nurture them to maturity? And I think you almost have to look at your projects as like raising a child, and they do grow up and they don't need the same kind of caretaking at different stages. But I think a certain sort of maturity is gained through taking the time to learn. And I think, quite frankly, building alliances, like right now, it is a critical moment. We're all aware of that, and I don't need to emphasize that. But there's plenty of wonderful work out there. I'm not saying that there's no space for new initiatives, but really ask, do you need to birth something new, or can you support and align yourself and collaborate with others? And I think in some ways, another aspect I feel really strongly about is rivalrous dynamics are almost at the root of some of what is really problematic in our world today. So I think we have to also go beyond thinking that I have to do mine and be the one that shines, and really step into how can I be more of a supportive presence and bring my talents and skills to what's out there, what's working and what's good, and if you can't find that thing, and if you do get that idea that keeps you awake at night and won't leave you alone, then probably you do have to launch something. But I'd say unless you get that really, really clearly, just work with those that are already doing something, and doing it well and doing it with integrity, and put your heart and soul behind that. And also it gives you the freedom to maybe move on when it's time, without having to, figure out how to exit from something you've created. And so that would be my advice, I suppose.
That's so well said and so well put. I've literally made notes of that. Thank you for sharing it. Uh, so I have one last question, and after that, I want to give the floor to you to tell us anything that you want to talk about. Anything. So this is my last question. Do you think women should lead the environmental justice movement? If yes, then why?
Mm. I think women have something very, very important to bring that is so far underrepresented and undervalued. Lead it, I don't know about specifically leading it, but I do think women need to step up more into leadership. And what I think is being undervalued and under-recognised, but that's critical going forward. So I think it's firstly that women live nature. I mean, I think there's a way, and again, I really learned this through my work with my own and menstrual cycle, and my experience with so many other menstruating bodies, that the menstrual cycle gives us an actually direct contact, an embodied lived experience of cycles. We know that it's not just about bleeding once a month and the hassle of that. There's also something around, the emotional changes that we go through, the energetic changes. We're not consistent. We ebb and we flow. And I think the more that women can really embody and embrace and get into contact with themselves as embodiments of nature, it provides us with a very profound and unique opportunity to access the change we want to see in the world from within our own bodies. I think this is very, very powerful and profound. And I think it's also part of what is that tide shifting thing away from, trying to make the change, but in the old way of, relentless growth and being on all the time, as if this is just an eternal spring. Like, the more I think we learn to listen to ourselves, our bodies, and act in our lives from the position that we are embodiments of nature, our responses to life, to the environment, to the urgent issues that are facing us will be much more rooted in a deeply felt embodied wisdom, which is necessary for the challenges that we're facing. Uh, yeah, I think that another sense that I have is that perhaps women are less inclined to be, I don't know that this is true. I'm sometimes very cautious to talk about these sort of gender dynamics of better or worse, women and men. I just sort of do feel, though, that there is something in the feminine that is undervalued and needs to rise, and that will be part of the new emerging leadership that we need for creating a balanced, sustainable embodied relationship to what it is that we want to change in our global circumstances.
Yes. Uh, at FFF also we don't uh, stress on the gender differences, but we wanted to talk about the strengths here. So you very well put it across that we can see the change from within us that we want to be in the world. So thank you for sharing that. So I know that we did a lot of reflection here, and
Yeah.
we also want to know if there's something that you would like to share um, with context to World Environment Day. So this year's theme is biodiversity.
Mm.
So maybe we can talk about that, or is there something that you would like to reflect with us? Because I'm really enjoying this fireside chat, and I can keep on going. So if you have something to share, that'll be nice, or I'll have to think about more topics to talk about.
Yeah. Well, I'm just struck by biodiversity as the key to resilience. I believe this is my understanding is that, monoculture is really also one of the most unsustainable things that we can do. And I think of this in both social as well as environmental senses. So I don't quite know where I'm going with this, but I think, one of the key challenges that I'm really sort of contemplating these days, and this is not like I have any answers around this, but I'm seeing a lot of polarity in the world around pretty much everything, you name it. And I feel like the biggest challenge that we are kind of going to have to come to terms with going forward is how do we genuinely embrace um, diversity without going into polarity. This is going to be, I think this is at the heart of what building resilience means, and this is not easy to do. I think we've all had, probably, young or old, a lot of experience of, like, we're all living in highly polarized and contentious times right now. So I think that that's sort of something that's maybe more on the soft skills side of what, as passionate agents of change that we all are, that actually learning to uncover bias in our own thinking and really genuinely try to engage in an open way with perspectives that are different than our own, and try to understand that without polarizing, I think is going to be a generous act that we're all going to have to learn to make in order to step up into the kind of leadership that we need to navigate the changes that we're facing, and not just burn out and break down in, bitter polarity. I think this is something that I feel increasingly important to learn how to do that. And I don't know that I've got any big insights other than question your own biases, look at the places where, I mean, this is a work that I've really had to do for myself too, with the things that make me really angry and upset. And I think there is something around a sort of righteous rage at what we're facing on, Earth these days. But, we've also got to learn how to sustain and sort of fight this battle without making enemies of each other and ending up sort of destroying ourselves and each other in the process. That's just an additional thought that comes to mind.
Yes, I really agree with you on that. I second that. Um, also,
Mm.
when
Sorry, I'm just working to get the. Yeah, here we go. Sorry, I'm back.
story of our lives, YouTube lives. So, I just would you like to accept questions from the YouTube?
Sure, sure.
Yeah, so I'll look up if we have some questions there. Mm. So, no, I think the audience is just mesmerized listening to you. We don't have questions there. And I am running out of questions too. And is there anything else you would like to share with us uh, with respect to climate change, with respect to what Fridays for Future is demanding, our demands? Uh, our demands have been very clear from the beginning. We want climate emergency to be declared by every government of this
Yes.
planet,
Yes.
and that's something that we keep working on, and
Yes.
it's a movement as well.
Yes.
Is there something that you would like to tell us or add it to that, or m- maybe we can be an ally in some way? I don't know. What do you think?
Yeah. Well, I think that, this is the time when we're all trying to sort of develop this ecological awareness of understanding who's doing what and what are the leverage points and how can we come together and align our efforts. And it's not always obvious. Sometimes this really takes time and contemplation and really, even step back a little bit from our sort of pressing agendas to, ask these deeper questions. So I don't know that I have more to say about that, but I just sort of feel like it's the time is now. And if not us, who? If not now, when? I think we're all acutely aware that we're all in this together and that there is no way. And I feel incredibly heartened and encouraged by Fridays for Future and other initiatives, that are really people putting themselves on the line for this work, for the earth. And I'm just really grateful that I've been able to be part of this conversation today with you and just add my voice to the choir. And I think we need to hear each other's voices and realize, that we're not alone. I think that's part of it too, is that sometimes it can feel quite lonely. But, I'm just sort of watching the space. I think like everyone, especially as our global lockdowns start to open up and, different things have been emerging. And I know in my own heart, it's just been this increasing sense too, that somewhere I need to slow down at the same time. There's an accelerated need to act. So, for me, the question is, how do I keep going forward? How do I resource my leadership from within and not just add to the problem by kind of frantically panicking and rushing to the front lines? So I don't know. I think that's sort of where I'm at in my life at the moment and what I've been learning and what I feel is a sort of part of my own unique voice that I can add. But I also really hope, and I love that question about women too, even though I realise that gender is a delicate topic, but I do think women also have to find their voices and start speaking up. And that's what I'm really looking for and curious about going forward is I'm listening out for the women in particular.
That's so cool. Okay, so I think we still have 9 minutes. I think I cannot think of anything else than asking you about like I keep daydreaming about a better future, right? And
Sure.
that's what we have at Fridays for Future. We are always thinking about future. So, with respect to the current situation where we are at, and the speed at which we are moving, and obviously the new normal is getting defined. Uh,
Mm.
do you envision a new normal? Do you see a new normal? Have you painted that picture in your mind, or do you see it, or are you working towards it? Would you like to share something, like maybe a maybe
Yeah.
just a rosy picture would be nice to just brainstorm here.
Well, I think the jury's still out, quite frankly. I sometimes I feel like there's hardly a day goes by where I'm not sort of on my knees in kind of grief, actually, at the predicament that we're in. And, I don't think I'm fundamentally optimistic, but I don't underestimate the peril of our times. And I think there's a lot of trauma that we're navigating. There's, personal as well as collective. I think that we have to just be willing to engage all of us at all levels of our being. I think this is maybe another piece that our, we are multi-dimensional beings and we're living in extremely complex systems here. So understanding systems, understanding and really doing our own work of healing our own and investigating our own trauma. I think this is it. I think so many people also want to participate and want to kind of front lines, but they're overwhelmed as well. And I think that, we're all needed. I think, frontline environmental work is one thing, but I think the healers and, the midwives, I think there are many midwives for this process. And, I think we just each have to start sensing deeply what is our gift, what is the piece that, brings us alive, what touches our hearts. And sometimes, it's even that we're wounded healers. The thing we most need to heal in ourselves is the gift that we have to bring. So I think I'm just speaking to a whole lot of threads, but actually to weave those threads together inside, we need help too. I think we also have to find our allies and our collaborators and our people who can journey with us in this. And I don't know, just sort of
No,
sharing
I
what's sort
no,
of
I
coming up in regard to that
no,
question.
you're absolutely correct. I've had this conversation with a lot of people, and this is the theme. Everybody wants to feel one, and the power lies in the oneness of our being. So I
Yes.
really understand where you're coming from, and thank you for sharing that. Obviously, we cannot define a new normal without being each other's allies.
Yeah.
It won't be the new normal; it will be the old story. So.
No. And I think we're still in this liminal space. We're still in between stories, actually. And I think there's also, I would sort of almost caution rushing too soon to try to define what that new normal is. I think I don't know, even feel it's like in a gestation period. And I always love the metaphor of that the moth in its transformation into a butterfly, it's a complete breakdown, actually. And that takes the time that it takes. So I think we have to be patient as well, which I know is not a very cool word in our in our times of burning here, but at the same time, we've got to source from wisdom, and that's deep. It's not at the surface level. So I think to try to tame the urge to rush and just add more kerosene to the fire. But I would love to ask you, Jasmine, maybe we've got a few minutes. I mean, what would be your response to that question for yourself? What do you
So,
feel about this new
so
normal?
yes,
What are
we
you
have
intuiting?
5 minutes. We have 5 minutes, and I'm no guest speaker here, so I'm going to keep it very short, just to add to our chat. I
Mm,
do agree that we should not rush into the definitions of these things. It should run its course, definitely. And also, like I said, the general theme of feeling one with each other, and being each other's allies. We all are on the same side, is what I think. And I think
mm,
that that's a new normal that I dream about and I would like to see. So that's something that have been like my understanding of a beautiful world where we are all together, working with each other, trying to solve our problems, anything, be it climate change or a cyclone or declaring climate emergency, for example.
yeah.
So I think uh, to me, new normal is work in progress, obviously, but its values are definitely to feel one with each other and to support each other, to be each other's allies. That's what I think. And
Mm,
I'm not a philosopher, but yeah, we tried to we did one more session which was really insightful, where we thought about where environment and philosophy meets, and we looked at different schools of thoughts, and it also talked about a specific school of thought, biocentrism, which made sense to me. And everybody should have the freedom to pick their school of thoughts. But yes, feeling one with nature is definitely going to take us a long way. So that's
mm,
also my perspective, or my idea of new
mm,
normal. Yeah,
mm.
yeah.
Yeah, thank you.
And
Yeah.
thanks for asking my opinion. I felt like being a part of this talk.
No, and I
Okay,
think it's
so
important that we all kind of find our own voice in this, and and just practice sort of saying it out loud. What do we feel? What are we really truly getting, yeah, what moves us inside,
but
what are the visions that we
I would like to call it out that these opinions are my own. This doesn't reflect of Fridays for Future. Uh, we have a separate values, and these were my opinions, and this has got nothing to do with Fridays for Future.
Mm,
we,
mm.
we might have a common opinion, but it's not, I'm not speaking on behalf of Fridays for Future. When you ask me, I'm giving my opinion.
Thank you,
Okay,
Jasmine.
so it's pleasure to have a chat with you. Totally enjoyed it. I hope you did too.
I did, and I'm sorry about some of the sort of technical things. I mean, our connection sometimes a bit unstable here, but we made it, I think, and I enjoyed
Yes,
it very much.
it's
It was a beautiful opportunity for me to distill some of my own feelings and thoughts around these very important topics and questions. So thank you.
Yes, thank you for doing that for us. We are really grateful that you took the time to reflect on these questions, and you felt free and you felt like comfortable to share it with all of us here at Fridays
Mm.
for Future, and to everybody on YouTube who will later watch this our conversation. And I hope everybody can take drive home different points at different stages of consciousness and awareness that they are at. So thank you for doing that for us. It's been an honor to talk to you. And I would like to thank you on behalf of our whole team, at Fridays for Future, for coming and talking to us. And I cannot wait to meet you in person. We would all want to meet you in person, and like do this in person as well, and be each other's allies.
Thank you. And I really wish everybody in the Fridays for Futures initiative movement all the strength and power and sustenance to stay the journey. It's a wonderful project, a wonderful initiative, and I'm fully behind it. So thank you for the opportunity to be part of it.
Thank you so much. Thank you for being here.
You're
So we
welcome.
are done, and I will end this meeting. And thank you everyone for joining in on our live stream. And feel free to comment after the video is posted. We would love to hear your thoughts.